It's a little progress to change the mentality of a vendor meal into something that's giving back to a community in each state.
Instead of that, I'm gonna not take that meal. And so then the caterer then would be responsible for donating that money, the value of that meal that was paid for already by the client, donating that, and that would turn into meals for food insecure children or adults, or anything like that.
We document and share best practices around owning, operating, and managing world-class wedding venues.
All right, Fausto, thank you so much for coming back on the Venue RX. This is awesome getting to chat again, and I know you have something really special that you're working on that we're chatting about today. And so it's funny, before we even jumped on here, I asked what you're working on, and I regretted it instantly because you started so passionately talking about this topic that I think really impacts our entire industry. And so I was like, let's press record, let's get in here. But thanks so much for coming on again today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. It is very passionate for me. I grew up very poor and in a very, very bad neighborhood in Philadelphia. And the road went two ways. And luckily I went the right way. And having parents who are Cuban and having family that is going to bed hungry, and then working in an industry where food is so thrown out daily under insurance reasons, there's so many things that you can't do. And, it's interesting, in this country, you can actually eat out of a dumpster, but I can't give you the food that we prepared because then my insurance company will drop me. That's nonsense right there. So one of the things that we came up with is the You Can Have Mine initiative. And basically what it is taking the vendor meals that we do provide that a client pays for full price, and asking each vendor if they're willing to donate the money that is being charged for that food to the 49 million Americans that are going to bed hungry or with food insecurity. 17 million of them are children. That boggles my mind. No child should ever go to bed hungry. We as the stewards of this industry are portrayed as villainous, cheap, that we take the client's money. We're never portrayed in these golden lights. I mean, look at COVID. We were the villains. We didn't want to burn the money. How dare us? It would have collapsed the industry. So here's a way, if we just did 1 year, we could make a difference, that it goes directly into the hands of people who need it. Not to a foundation, not to a group of people that are paying salaries, but directly into feeding hungry people. And what's one of the best ways? Teachers. Teachers see children hungry every day.
I love this. It's something and I'll share what we're doing a little bit later, but so unpack this, kind of go deeper a little bit in terms of like the practicality you mentioned. So for anyone who's not familiar, because I know your market, you work with so many venues, but you also, you have so much experience in the catering side of things. Help unpack and kind of explain that practice if someone's not currently feeding their vendors, and kind of, can you unpack a little bit of what that is?
Absolutely. Everybody should feed their vendors. I don't want anybody coming at me because they think I don't want to feed you. That is not it. I am about feeding vendors, but I'm also about hey, can we take a moment? So for instance, in every vendor's contract, like the DJ, the photographer, and the bands, it's in there. A hot meal is required. Now, a hot meal is required, but it doesn't really dictate the time that it's required. And I think sometimes that gets a little sketchy in our industry, that they want to eat above everybody else. And that sort of kind of rubs me, I'll be honest, the wrong way. You will be fed, but clients first. This is the job that we were paid to do. So as the year was going by after COVID, I kept watching it get progressively worse and sort of kind of mean-spirited with people, that if you just approach the subject of not feeding somebody, there was this internal anger, like they deserved it. And then I look at the world and people who don't have anything, not even bread. And I'm going, we're getting paid, and paid very well, that you could actually go to dinner the night before, the day after, pack a sandwich, and this is what you're concentrating on? So my mind started to work, and I'm like, well, how can I unite everybody that we're all giving together? So I came up with the idea of the You Can Have Mine initiative. And if we could do it for 1 year, The math is so simple that it could potentially raise $202 million. $202 million with every state participating. That's 15 caterers per state. Now, mind you, there are more of us, but I just went with 15. I'd love to double it, but I'm working slow. It's it's a little progress to change the mentality of a vendor meal into something that's giving back to a community in each state.
So let me say it back to you just to make sure I'm getting it and make some clarification if needed for the audience as well. So a vendor, say a DJ or whoever, typically they would be the client, whoever it is, the couple would be paying 80, 100, 150, 200, whatever it is per plate, and counted in, they'd be paying the caterer to provide that for the DJ, whoever the vendor was, right?
Yeah.
The vendor says, hey, great, instead of that, I'm gonna not take that meal. And so then the caterer then would be responsible for donating that money, the value of that meal that was paid for already by the client, donating that, and that would turn into meals for food insecure children or adults, or anything like that. Am I hearing that correctly?
Absolutely. And there's really no cost to anyone except the couple that is providing that, because in their contract, they have to pay for those vendor meals. So for instance, in any particular wedding of ours, we have 15 vendors now to pay meals for that a client is paying for. So that can average out to $1,875 per job that the client is now paying, because remember, there is not a discounted price because you're a vendor. You are the same as a client, because how can I discount the same meal for you but not grandmother or the bride or the couple?
It
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So you have to sort of go that way. And let's be honest, you're having hors d'oeuvres, you're having dinner, you're having dessert, you're a guest.
Yeah.
That's just the way it works in my book. And so if you take that, and let's say we do one event, 3 events, and times it by 15 caterers, just that weekend of one catered event, 15 caterers, you're looking at $28,000. So if we did it once, we can raise $28,000 and just try it as an experiment. Okay, now let's take it a step further. Now there's 3 events on that Saturday. 15 caterers is $84,375. Pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Take it a step further, do the year of the same 15 caterers in just one state. $387,500. Pretty good, right?
Especially for the state. Like in a localized area like that, you're taking care of your own backyard. I'd love that.
Exactly. So that's that state. Now take it a step further, even more, and times it by 12 months, because we're year-round now here in Maine. So you're looking at $4 million. So now let's go bigger and go 50 states. $202 million is a lot of money to give back, that all of us as a unit of professionals, because we're all really doing the same thing, we're now looking really good to the press. We're not the bad guys. We're not the ones that are always demonized in media. And there's this thing about feeding people that really deserve, by no means of their own. It's not because they can't afford it. This country, everything has gotten so expensive that children aren't even being fed, and parents don't have the money to feed their kids. Teachers are now responsible to feed. I know teachers who bring snacks to school to help the kids, and then they're saving half of a sandwich for later because they don't have it. How good is that for us? So I know sometimes that people take this the wrong way when you first initiate it, but if you take a step back and understand where it's coming from, it's the good of all of us to do better, because we are getting paid very well for this job. And to say, you know what, today I'd rather give my meal to somebody else. There is no tax break whatsoever for me as a caterer or any caterer, because we're not a nonprofit, so it doesn't work. We actually have to pay for the credit card fees for processing it, so we're not taking that out of that money. So the loss is really on our end, and on top of that, that adds another layer, because now we have to put everybody together and say, what group do you want to donate this money? So let's say in that month we have or one weekend we have $28,000. As a collective group of everybody who donated, we pick the people that are going to have that food or that money. It's not my call. It's all of us.
That's so cool.
I don't know. In my mind, maybe the rainbow is too big, but I'm hoping
I want to zoom out a little bit because I love this. I think it's amazing. In fact, like I was sharing a little bit before, we partner with Got Your Back San Diego here locally. And so for the 5 venues we manage here in Southern California, anytime we book a wedding, we are not only feeding a child who is in that same food insecure situation, we're feeding them for a month, but then our insurance partner has also agreed to match that contribution. And so it's the exact same thing. And that was my same passion behind it. It's like, hey, we're generating this revenue, but venues are such community-based things. And I think, catering companies are that too. You're not necessarily, depending on the caterer, right? You're not necessarily flying over the country doing things. You're taking care of venues in maybe 100-mile radius, right? So that for us, it was a way that we can exist in the community in a philanthropic way, in addition to being an event space. But I digress. For venue, let's say there's a venue owner listening to this right now. Maybe they're all inclusive, or there's even a catering company that's listening to this right now. And they're like, I'm not doing $150 plates. I'm not doing $100 plates. I'm like in the $30 to $80 range. Is this something that you feel like would only be accessible, or only be something that maybe those 15 caterers in the area that were charging those prices and were serving that clientele would be able to do? Or is this something that we could kind of adopt throughout the range of vendors?
I think we can adopt it because and every state has its cluster of 10 to 15 caterers that are doing that. So here I am in Maine, and we're popping out $125 plates per person. And this is Maine, you know what I mean? And the same thing. So like Philadelphia, Chicago, New York, those will always be the higher end, but gradually we're going up. And so I'll take anything at this point, because there are so many people, and with the fear of a possible recession, there are going to be more people that are going to be waiting in food lines. So no, I wouldn't be, not saying I wouldn't turn anything down. I'll take $10 towards the project. Money is money because it all goes to buy food. I just joined the board of Seats for Hope, which feeds the homeless here in our state. And we call them neighbors, which is, I think, a very nice way and a beautiful way to approach that, instead of just, we're feeding the homeless. Now we're calling them neighbors. And it's a very interesting way that they did it. And it took me a moment to sort of kind of realize, wow, I like that 100% better than just saying somebody who's homeless, because they're not homeless by choice. Sometimes people are, but there's a great deal of people that aren't. And they were feeding 20 people a week. They're up to 100 a week. And they can't, and that's $1,000. They only have $1,000 budget, or they will lose their building. So $1,000 doesn't go far in a week for 100 people. So this is where this project could really come in and help. And it really has to be all of us. It just can't be the caterer. It has to be the photographers and the DJs and the bands all willing to say, hey, you know what? Let's do it. Even let's experiment in 6 months. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Because, and again, the option is always theirs. You can say, yes, I opt to give you the money, or B, no, I'd rather have my meal. It's up to you. And no hard feelings. Nobody's going to look down on you. You want a meal? Do you want a meal? That's fine. But you make the choice, and I'm hoping the right choice is made. And I think for me, the passion is really seeing people go to bed hungry, because I see it all the time, being on the board, and then knowing my family in Cuba doesn't have money to buy food. There is no food to buy, first of all. So it's hard to digest that sometimes. And when we do have leftover food, which isn't always, caterers make what you pay for. So there's not this overabundance of food. We're not a restaurant. That's not how this works. So, but when there is a party, let's say for 600 people, and 400 people show up, there's food left over for 200. Problem is, how do you get it to their hands, into the masses that need it? Well, if it's been cooked, there are certain rules that you have to follow. I can throw it out, and you can go to that dumpster, and we can lay it right on top, and then you can go get it, and then my insurance won't be affected. There's a problem in this country about that. So if I've cooked it, here, let me give it to you. But you can get dropped by your insurance. So if they get sick.
When we were a staffing company, a lot of times, many times our team, so that would happen, right? Our team being the staffing side of it, we were a separate company. We were a vendor. So we would get the catering company to let us take it as like a vendor meal, like the extra stuff. And then our team, we wouldn't officially sign off on it, but then our team would go and take it to different places. And so, but there are workarounds like that. But, you know, Fausto, one of the things I like about this is it's empowering the other vendors to get involved in this, because I know a lot of catering companies that do have a piece of their organization that kind of helps with this. I think especially around Thanksgiving time, Christmas, like, you know, obviously you're doing the parties and the different things that are happening, but I know a lot of chefs, I know a lot of catering companies that do, you know, make an effort during those times. I think this is a great opportunity to kind of rally the industry around that and kind of provide some support. As people are hearing this and you know, interested in this, and maybe even venue owners and operators can get on board to kind of help influence this. Have you started a website? Like, what's the practical rollout of this?
Well, we've gotten published first with an article because we want to get some word out there. So CaterSource was gracious enough to let me write a full article, which I contributed to CaterSource magazine a year and a half ago because we started the project slowly. Because I don't want it to feel like I'm trying to take anything away from anybody. And again, I'm going to say that. And then we started with the branding and then the logo, and then we're going to create the website. And so
I'm gonna say something though that, again, maybe they'll come after me with pitchforks like you were saying, but like, except you're taking away one meal that someone could pack for a fantastic cause. I think let's call it what it is. Like, it's a comparative small, like if we don't have to be fed, if we have to bring in trail mix or, a ham sandwich, but we get to contribute to a cause like this, like that's huge. And I understand the value of the industry. Like, we've been in this industry for 11 years now. I personally have done everything from washing dishes after events to bartending to managing to having a team to now running multiple venues. And so it's like, when there's an opportunity to make an impact like that and contribute in that way, I mean, to me, it sounds like a no-brainer.
Thank you for saying that, because sometimes I say it and people tend to react differently, because when that article first came out in another magazine, I got really hate mail, and it hurt. I've been doing this for 37 years, and in 37 years, I have never not once fed a vendor. Never. And so if you have not been fed, you can come talk to me, because we're right here. But I find it interesting that when you say that, and it's not like I'm trying to line my pockets, I just can't. I can see an adult. I don't want to see anybody go hungry, but an adult is different. They can take care of themselves. They can fend for themselves. They can find and
Be resourceful. Yeah.
Child can't. And when you look at the statistics in this country, 17 million is way too much, way too many. There is where we need to step in and do better. We need to do better as a group of people. We came together during COVID, but somehow during COVID, the tide has turned and we're back to that sort of kind of selfishness that we all have. And I know it because I was a very selfish person, and my daughter was born and I became sort of unselfish. There are moments I'm still selfish, but not like I used to be. And I just find it like, I'm not asking you to do anything but give me 6 months, 3 months, whatever it is, let's try it. And let's just see if it works, because I don't think any child should ever go to school begging for food. My daughter goes to school and she has her card, and lunches are provided in our state, but I pay for her lunch card so that if a kid wants something that's not on the free lunch cart, I say food, even though it's junk food, it's, like chicken fingers and stuff like that, but no candy, no popcorn, no soda, food. She can buy them, whatever they want, no question. And so I that to me is important. And I think more of us should do that, even though, I'm not loaded or rich or, have a ton of extra money, but I know what it's like. I don't know a lot of people who remember parents waiting in line for cheese, milk, and peanut butter. I do. I remember it vividly.
Yeah.
and being embarrassed. And when I look at Vans used to sell at Kmart for $12. And those were the shoes I wore. Today, they're $120 a pair. I'm like, wow, I should have bought a ton of them and made a fortune.
Yeah.
But when you grow up not having that or watching your parents take care of two households, it really changes you. And it's funny that I went into something so wasteful as the food industry. Like I scratched my head and when we had our cafe, whatever food was left over, I would give to whoever came in. Say, okay, we're closing here, take it. And we're working with different restaurants for the board that I'm on for Seeds of Hope. And we are asking them anything left over, let us have. And, like the donut shop gives us donuts for the morning breakfast and things like that. So that's been helpful too. Because let's think about it too. There's a lot of people who don't attend the weddings. They say they're going to go to a wedding and 9 times out of 10, there's like 7 people missing. That's 7 meals that were paid for that now are just sitting there.
Totally.
And staff gets tired of eating filet and salmon and short ribs and chicken. Believe it or not, they just want a slice of pizza because we eat it all the time. So
it sounds so ridiculous to say, but you're totally right. I'm wondering. So I have two questions for you. First, I want to know a little bit more about the practical rollout. So again, like how do people get involved and things like that. But I want to ask you before we get to that, something that maybe might be a little bit more of a difficult question for those venues that are more rural, those venues that are out, in maybe an hour outside of town. For a venue like that, how does, and a caterer that's servicing that venue, if it's not, on an inclusive list or something like that, how can those types of venues and caterers get involved, and even vendors, right?
Are you talking about in my state or all over?
I mean, let's take it to your state, but yeah, it'd be interesting to kind of see the adaptation.
It's interesting. We are comparable now to Chicago and New York, and being from Philadelphia, I can actually move somebody from a venue here to Philadelphia to a historic ballroom cheaper than doing a wedding here in Maine.
That's
so
cool.
The clients have changed. So when you said rural, the furthest one is about an hour and a half, and they're $17,000 just to rent. So dinner plate is not going to be $30, and if you're doing it, you're giving the person the wrong amount of money. They can afford $17,000, they can afford $125. Now, should people? It's perspective, but I'm not going to go somewhere and you're paying $17 and do a $30 menu.
Yeah,
that's just not going to work. You know what I mean? Like if you can afford this, you can afford this, and it's not gouging. Food prices have gone up 11%.
Yeah.
So, and then you have to pay staff for travel time. So do you see it's not, people think that what they pay is outrageous, but what they don't realize, you have 200 people, it's an hour and a half drive to and from, you have to pay that because that's how you keep your staff now. And then on top of that, there's 20% on the bill that we don't keep. We're not allowed to touch any of that as the owner. So there are all these things in there. So that is gone in my neck of the woods, that is gone. There are no $30 menus unless you're doing like an Elks Lodge or a Masonic, and there's no shade in that. But those are really DIY client that are bringing in their own decor. There's no planner. They got maybe a $1,500 photographer or something like that. Everything has just been, in their budget, which is totally fine because that's how I started, and I still take clients like that. I'm not going to say that I only do high end because that's bull. I do both. Everything feeds the pot. At the end of the day, we have employees that we have to pay. And so I think the best way to do it is that when the clients come to you, a lot of times, and I don't think a lot of vendors know this, but they have no clue what that contract says. Because the first time they sometimes hear about a vendor meal is when we talk to them about it. I said, have you read your contract? Does your photographer need a meal? Does your band need a meal? Does your DJ? Because we need to know how many people to charge for. Now, I'm not making you free food. I am charging just the way you're not going to make me a free album. The same, you're not coming to my daughter's quinceañera and playing for free. You see what I mean? Like everything is a symbiotic way of paying. So we ask and they get this look at, what do you mean I have to pay? We hear it 100 times. And I said, yeah, in your contract it says it, blah, blah, blah. I said, make sure you check the bar contract and the venue contract because they're now putting it in there as well. I says, well, do we have to feed your staff? I said, nope, I take care of my staff. I order them pizza or we get McDonald's, but most of the time people already come fed. they get paid very well. And whatever's left over from the charcuterie or the crudité table, go ahead and eat it, because it's all has to get dumped. It's been sitting for an hour. I'm not bringing it back.
Yep.
You dump it all. And which is sad because it's a lot of fruit and stuff. But if it's been outside, I'm not risking somebody getting sick. And so for rolling out the project, we're going to start with the website and then starting to have people who want to do it and start creating sort of kind of the email list, and then putting the plans into place, and then seeing if we actually have to form like an association, or because it is money that we are giving away, does it have to form a charitable sort of sector like a 501c? So we're getting all the legal parts done so nobody gets in trouble, because technically I've paid the tax on all that money. So each caterer would technically be paying the tax on the money that comes in, you know, the 8% that the state gets. Now we're just gifting that money back. And
But with that, wouldn't it count as a charitable deduction if it was a 501c3? And go ahead.
We shouldn't count it as the caterer because it's all of us donating that money. So it's not fair for one group to take the charitable donation. Do you see what I mean? Like, it wouldn't be, I would not feel right taking that if I've asked 15 people to donate their food money. So that's 15 people that could take it, but that gets into really tricky territory. So that's why we're trying to figure out, can we put that money into say an LLC that we create, and then that money gets shipped out. And then that way nobody has to get taxed, nobody's getting the deduction. It's just is living there sort of like a money market account that we draw from. That's it.
Yeah. That is interesting, because I see what you mean now. If you're taking that as a tax deduction, that's actually helping your business.
Exactly. And that's not fair.
Yeah, that's true. How is it a write-off that the vendor could take?
It wouldn't be a write-off for any of them.
Yeah.
That I don't want this to be like it's only good for the caterer. That's not where I'm coming from. I want this to be good for all of us. This is a group effort. This isn't my effort. I want this initiative to be all of ours. All of ours. To me, I remember probably my darkest day when I was first starting out 37 years ago. My power got turned off in my apartment. My dog died because all I had was pasta. I think I gave him pasta, and I don't know if it died because of that, but it was literally. And I don't know if you know what a transfer is, like from bus to bus.
Yeah.
I remember I didn't have 15 cents, which was the transfer to the next bus to get to. So I walked from that point to my office, which wasn't mine. I worked for two women at the time, and I walked. And I just remember that, and I was like, well, I don't have any food at home, but I can go to my parents and eat, and I just won't tell them, and stuff like that. And those are memories that stick with you. And I feel that we as a country should do better, because there's such an abundance here, and I don't understand it. I sit and I rack my brain, and I think, what can we do to make things better? And the only thing, because of my industry and knowing and seeing firsthand from 3 different states I've been in working, going, holy shit, this is the answer. This is the easiest way, without having to pay somebody a salary to run it, without having an office building or phone. The most you're going to be paying out of probably that money is the website, $30 a month. That's it. That's it. Nobody can accuse anybody of taking the money or laundering the money or moving the money somewhere else. It's all there, and everybody. So what you do is create sort of a sign-off. You create like a little board to run the money. So the treasurer and then 3 people who can sign out the money. And then collectively, everybody has 5 or 10 charities. And every month you just hit those charities that are going to get that money, or families that are in desperate need of that money, then that money goes directly into their hands. And a way that you can do it, people will say, well, what if they buy alcohol, or what if they buy cigarettes? You can actually turn off those things in gift cards that is only purchasable for food.
Yeah. Almost like there's a WIC program here, Women, Infants, and Children, that does something similar with like the peanut butter and the milk and some of that. Totally. Some of those like essentials that help. That's a great idea. Well, Fausto, you're going to have to, I want to make sure that I get the website or resources or links, because I think it's really cool. And I think there's definitely like our industry, there is so much waste, like you said. And so if you can even just take a percentage of that, and it can be a growing percentage, right? It's us all contributing little pieces that really, it's not going to be one big donation from somebody. It's going to be a bunch of people, right?
It's all of us. And it'll change the mindset of how this industry is portrayed, especially in the media. And if everybody just took a moment to look back at the last 3 years of how we were pictured, not only from Congress, but along the way from the New York Times to USA Today, every newspaper, we were the bad guys. We weren't creating love. We weren't creating magic. Those were distant memories. We were stealing the money from these poor working class families.
Yeah.
It made us look bad.
Yeah.
And this is a way sort of to change the narrative that we aren't bad people. We are just business people with hearts.
Yeah. I love it. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing about that.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let's make sure that we get those resources. We can put them in the show notes. And yeah, this was fun. I know I'll see you at events very soon, but this was awesome, Fausto. Thank you.
Thank you. Good seeing you.